A former bodyguard connected to Diddy has gone on record about footage used in 50 Cent's documentary, and what he revealed has set the internet on fire. The statements from this bodyguard raise questions about how 50 Cent got his hands on Diddy's own legal team says. So let's get into exactly what this former bodyguard said, how it connects to 50 Cent's documentary, and why the fallout is still unfolding. A former bodyguard of Sean Diddy Combs pushed back on claims that footage used in 50 Cent's Netflix miniseries, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, was stolen, adding tension to the already tumultuous rollout for the documentary. The name attached to this situation is Roger Bonds. Roger Bonds was the man who had Diddy's literally back as his head of security from 2003, that is 9 years of close proximity, to one of the most powerful men in the music industry. 9 years of seeing things, hearing things, and keeping things to himself until now. Combs' lawyers had previously accused the miniseries of using unauthorized material. Social media. Former bad boy security guard Roger Bonds weighed in on questions about how the footage may have changed hands. People had one question for Bonds, and it was simple: how did 50 Cent get the footage? Bonds said people kept asking him, "Yo, Bonds, how 50 get the footage?" and Bonds had an answer. Claimed Combs liked to hire young videographers for extended periods, low wages, and often filmed around that was the foundation of the explanation. Bonds said Diddy wants a videographer with him 24 hours a day, whether on a yacht, whether on a ship, wherever they're at, he wants to videotape. Now here is where it gets interesting. Laid out a scenario where these young videographers would come to a financial agreement with Diddy. They would film everything. They would work around the clock. And then, according to Bonds, problems would start. Bonds said that discontent from workers who weren't paid or were deceived about the amount they would be paid, possibly in retaliation, would sell footage gathered during that time to get paid for their work and time. He noted that people who are not as enamored with Diddy as other young people may be, we're looking for a chance to work with someone like Bonds Diddy. Continued, he gets in touch with the office. The chief of staff, "Yo, what is this I'm paying you? Know what you paying? You was outside all of these hours. 160-something hours was outside in a week. 140. Now think about that Bonds for a moment. Is painting a picture of videographers who are working extreme hours. They are filming everything. When it comes time to pay them, Bonds alleges that Diddy would dispute the invoices. He would question why the hours were so high, even though he was the one demanding round-the-clock filming. Bonds then laid it out plainly. Being if you got a contract, he don't stand to that contract. Guess what happens? The videographer can do whatever he wants to do. So now that footage goes to the highest bidder. And according to Bonds, that highest bidder could have been 50 Sean Cent. Said that unpaid videographers could take matter of their footage into their own hands and sell it to the highest bidder, which he said could have included 50 Cent. This is business, now let's take a step back and look at the documentary itself. The Reckoning is an American television documentary about the sexual misconduct allegations Sean Diddy Combs, directed by Alexandria Stapleton, and released on Netflix on December 2nd, 2025. This was not a small release. In the 6 days after its release, the series was viewed 21.8 million times, making it the second most viewed Netflix during the week of December 1st, 2025, after Volume 1 of the 5th season of Stranger Things. 21.8 million views in 6 days. That is not just a documentary. That is a cultural event. And at the center of the controversy round it is the footage. How did 50 Cent and his production team get the material Diddy's to use? Team said it was stolen. Bonds says it was business. Sean Combs' The Reckoning, the new Netflix documentary miniseries on Diddy, already caused a bit of controversy. The Bad Boy Mogul's legal team accused and the rest of the series production team of stealing footage for the DOC. But former Bad Boy security guard Roger Bonds thinks these claims are bogus. In a social media clip caught by DJ Academics on Instagram, the G-Unit mogul reposted a clip of Bonds talking about the documentary footage. That is 50 Cent himself reposting the clip. He was not running from the controversy. He was amplifying it. He was letting Bonds' words do the talking. Now, to understand the full weight of what Bonds said, you have to understand who Roger Bonds is and what he saw during his time working for Diddy. Roger Bonds was born in the 1980s New York, a time when the neighborhood was deeply affected by the drug epidemic, crime, and economic hardship. As one of 9 children in a household with limited resources, Roger had to navigate a challenging environment from an early age. He endured a difficult home life, as he alleged in an interview that his father often physically abused his mother. As a result, Vaughn spent his teenage years out of the house, getting involved in petty crimes. This is a man who came from the streets. He was not born into privilege. He worked his way into the security world, and eventually he ended up in Diddy's inner circle. He served as the rapper's head of security from 2003 to 2012. During that period, Bonds worked closely with the Bad Boy Records founder. During the period when some of the alleged incidents took place, including during Diddy's relationship with Cassie Ventura. That is the context. This is not a random person making statements from the outside. This is someone who was in the room, someone who was in the car, someone who was at the parties, the events, the private moments. And now, after years of silence, he has become one of the most vocal former associates of Diddy. In the public eye these days, Roger Bonds has traded in his intimidating security persona for something quite different. He's now working as a motivational speaker and proudly identifies as a certified DV domestic violence advocate. According to his Instagram profile, that transformation is significant. A man who spent nearly a decade protecting one of hip-hop's most powerful figures is now a domestic violence advocate. The shift speaks to what he says. He witnessed during his time with Diddy. Since then, Roger has been vocal about the various incidents he claims to have during his time working for Diddy. He has alleged that he saw Diddy physically abusing both Cassie and his former girlfriend, Kim Porter. Additionally, he claimed that he often saw inviting Diddy unfamiliar men into his Cassie, room. He stated that, while he did not know what transpired behind closed doors, he could make an educated guess. These are not small claims, and they come from a man who says he was standing right there. In November 2023, when Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit against her former boyfriend, she also mentioned Roger Bonds in her allegations. She recounted an incident from 2009 in which Roger attempted to intervene while she was allegedly being assaulted by Diddy. According to Cassie, he tried to step in and protect her, but his efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. So when Bond speaks about how 50 got the footage for the documentary, people listen because he was there. He saw how Diddy operated behind closed doors. He knows the machinery of that empire. And his explanation that Diddy would hire young videographers, work them around the clock, refuse to pay them, and then those videographers would sell the footage to the highest bidder. That paints a picture. It suggests that the very behavior Diddy is accused of in other areas of his life, allegedly exploiting people and refusing to pay what was owed, may have been the thing that sent the ammunition for this documentary. Now let's talk about what 50 Cent himself said about the footage. During an interview ahead of the release of Sean Combs' The Reckoning, 50 Cent was asked directly about the unreleased NBC News correspondent Chloe Mellis how he got the hotel room footage for the Diddy Netflix documentary. Jackson's response was telling. I figured most journalists would not disclose their sources. He did not confirm or deny. He deflected with a smirk that is classic 50 Cent. 50 Cent admitted, I would doubt he knows, regarding Diddy's knowledge of the footage in the Netflix documentary. In other words, 50 Cent was saying that Diddy probably did not even know this footage existed in the documentary until it aired. That is a statement that carries weight. If true, it means that Diddy and his legal team were blindsided by some of the material in the series. Mellis went on to ask whether this meant Diddy would find out about the videos being in the documentary for the first time when it officially releases, to which the director Stapleton replied, perhaps. Perhaps one word, and it set the stage for everything that followed. And ETFLIX's director claims footage Diddy calls the documentary legally a hit piece. That is the battle line on one side. Netflix and 50 Cent saying everything was done by the other side. Diddy's team calling it stolen material and a personal vendetta. To fully understand why Roger Bond's statements matter, you have to understand the documentary and itself, the firestorm it created. It had been nearly 2 years since Curtis 50 Cent Jackson announced he would be executive producing a Sean Combs documentary, and the project finally had a release date. The 4-episode project titled Sean Combs' The Reckoning dropped globally on Netflix on December 2nd. Alexandria Stapleton directs the project. She was the creative force behind the camera, and 50 Cent was the executive producer who made the whole thing possible. But there is a distinction that matters here. Netflix stated Curtis Jackson is an executive producer, but does not have creative control. No one was paid to participate. That statement from Netflix was a direct response to the accusations from Diddy's camp. They were saying, in effect, that 50 Cent put his name and his resources behind the project. But the editorial decisions were made by Stapleton. The Netflix team. This is an important distinction because it shields 50 Cent from the accusation that the documentary is just a personal attack. Dressed up as journalism, the Netflix Loglini described the series as a staggering examination of the media mogul, music legend, and convicted offender, born with an insatiable drive for stardom and a knack for spotting talent. Combs made a quick ascent through the ranks of the music industry with Bad Boy Entertainment and was crucial in bringing hip-hop to the mainstream. But along the way, and as detailed by his former associates, childhood friends, artists, and employees, something darker began to color color his ambitions through explosive, never-before-seen materials, including exclusive interviews with those formerly in his orbit. This documentary tells the story of an enterprising man and the gilded empire he built, and the underworld that lay just beneath its surface. Never-before-seen materials. That phrase is the crux of the entire controversy. When Diddy's legal team heard those words, they went on the attack according to Deadline. Diddy said that Netflix's so-called documentary is a shameful hit piece. The comments reportedly also cited 50 Cent as a long-time personal vendetta for Combs. A shameful hit piece, those are strong words. And Diddy spokesperson Judah Engelmeyer condemned the documentary, calling it a shameful hit piece. But here is where Bond's explanation about the footage comes in. If Bonds is right, if the footage was obtained from videographers who were never paid for their work, then it was not stolen, it was sold. And there is a legal difference between those two things. USA Today reported that Netflix refuted Combs' claims. Netflix's response was, "The project has no ties to any past conversations between Sean Combs and Netflix. The footage of Combs leading up to his indictment and legally obtained. This is not a hit piece or an act of retribution." Legally obtained. Netflix did not mince words. They stood behind their content and their process. The cease and desist sent to Netflix did not delay or interrupt the release of the Diddy documentary, which is currently streaming on the platform. So even when Diddy's lawyers fired off legal threats, Netflix did not flinch. The documentary went live on schedule, and then it broke viewership records. Now the documentary itself covers a wide range of episodes topics. 1 and to re-examine the West Coast tensions of the 1990s, including the unsolved murders of Tupac Shakur and Christopher the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace. Interview subjects include former LAPD detective Greg former Kading, NYPD rap intelligence officer Derek and Tupac's cousin William Lassane. One of the most disturbing accounts in the documentary comes from former escort Clayton Howard, who alleges he was hired to participate in Diddy's notorious freak-offs described as drug and sex-fueled events. The documentary also touched on the surveillance that footage had already gone viral. In May 2020, for CNN reported on a leaked video that showed Combs grabbing, shoving, and kicking Cassie in a hotel. Days later, he said he took full responsibility for his actions in the video. That was his first and only time admitting to any wrongdoing. Before then, he had denied everything, posting a statement to social media in December that read, "Enough is enough. For the last couple of weeks, I have sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation, and my legacy. He said sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged." But then the video came out and everything changed. Because you cannot deny what is on camera. The documentary also featured the trailer that had everyone talking. The trailer features Diddy telling his legal team, "We're losing just days before his arrest." That clip alone sent shockwaves through social media. Did he, the man who always seemed in control? The man who always had the upper hand, telling his own lawyers that they were losing now. Some people had issues with the documentary. Not everyone agreed that it was a fair and piece of journalism. Tor called out 50 Cent for mischaracterizing an interview Tor did with slain rapper Notorious Big. The clip made it seem like Biggie is scared of Sean Combs. It was positioned right before a scene about Biggie's death. However, Tor said Biggie made the comment after his first album, and he was talking about the street. That's him talking about, "I'm afraid of getting knocked off on the street." Tory explained in a TikTok video. That is a significant criticism. If the documentary took an interview clip out of context and positioned it to suggest that Biggie was afraid of Diddy, that is an editorial choice that changes the meaning of what was said. Combs' mother, Janice Combs, spoke out about inaccuracies in the series regarding her grandson Justin being fathered by Puffy's former bodyguard Wolf. That lie was already debunked, but Puffy's former bodyguard Gene Deal insists it's true. The documentary also Janice beat Puffy throughout his childhood. She denied the abuse. "I am writing this statement to correct some of the lies presented. These inaccuracies regarding my son's upbringing and family life is intentionally done to mislead viewers and further harm our reputation." Janice wrote, "My memories of Sean growing up are one of a respectful and diligent child and teenager." The documentary also left out some things that should have been included. Kim Porter, model and mother of 3 of Puffy's children, died in 2018 from pneumonia. But the documentary skipped details about Kim's death. Fans noted that the series missed the opportunity to cover Kim's life with Puffy and the aftermath of her death. Despite the criticisms, the documentary landed. It was viewed millions of times. It dominated the cultural conversation. And the reason it had such an impact is because of the footage. The same footage that Roger Bonds was likely sold by unpaid videographers. But Bonds was not the only former bodyguard making headlines. There is another name in this story. And that name is Gene Deal. Gene Deal is a different figure than Roger Bonds. Well, Bonds served as Diddy's head of security from 2003 to 2012. Gene Deal had been detailing Diddy's life to the public. It has felt like every day there is a new interview, clip or article dropping, where he speaks on things he saw or knew related to Puff. His name and thoughts come up so frequently that they have become both numbing and overwhelming simultaneously. In an interview with The Art of Dialogue, former Bad Boy Records bodyguard Gene Deal suggested that Diddy was turned into a monster by the music industry. When Homeland Security ran up into his house, people would tell you, or people knew, that it was only a matter of time that they was going to indict and bring him in to see the judge. Deal continued, it's all about the people who trained and taught him the music business, because Puff, he wasn't born a monster, he was made into a monster brother. He started doing the things to other people that was done to him. To keep it frank, that is a remarkable statement. Deal is not excusing Diddy's behavior. He is saying that the industry itself created the conditions for it. He is pointing fingers not just at Diddy, but at the people who mentored him and showed him how the game Deal worked. Named names, he said. Did he learn from Andre Harrell? He learned from Russell Simmons. He learned from Clive Davis. Deal alleged they were heavy into beating women and doing things at that crazy stage. That's gonna make him think that he can get away with the same thing. Those are serious accusations. And they touch on a systemic problem in the music industry that goes beyond any one individual. Deal is suggesting that Diddy's behavior was not an anomaly. It was a pattern that was passed down from one generation of music industry power players to the next. Now, to understand why 50 Cent was the one to produce this documentary and why Diddy's team immediately called it a vendetta, you have to understand the history between these two men. Their feud spans more than 2 decades, and it is one of the most complex rivalries in hip-hop history. Sean Diddy, Combs, and 50 Cent came up in the rap industry around the same time and have been feuding for almost as long. While Diddy and 50 Cent have been at odds since the early 2000s, their feud made headlines again nearly 2 decades later. It started with music. 50 Cent first referenced Diddy on the track You Not Like Me from his Grammy-nominated breakthrough album Get Rich or Die Trying. On the track, 50 Cent rapped about ghostwriting for P. Diddy, and that was not just a throwaway line, as 50 Cent was trying to recover from both being dropped from Columbia Records and shot 9 times. The G-Unit leader took up ghostwriting to make ends meet. In 2020, to 50 sat for an interview with The Breakfast Club, where he said during that period, he ghost wrote Diddy's verse. So the relationship started with 50 Cent writing words for Diddy to rap. He was behind the scenes, getting no credit while Diddy was on stage performing those words. That dynamic, where one person does the work and another person gets the glory, is central to understanding why 50 Cent has always viewed with a Diddy particular kind of contempt. In 2006, 50 Cent released a diss track which featured sounds of gunfire and his allegation that Combs knew the identity of the killer of Christopher Wallace, a rapper known as the Notorious B.I.G., who was both a protege and best friend to Combs. Wallace was gunned down in Los Angeles in March 1997, as he and his crew, which included were traveling in a caravan. Combs was in a different vehicle from the one Wallace was in at the time. Wallace was shot. No one has ever been charged with the murder. That diss track changed the dynamic. 50 Cent was not just taking shots at Diddy's his business acumen, he was making an allegation about murder. He was saying that Diddy knew who killed Biggie. That is as serious as it gets in hip-hop for 50. Who built G-Unit with an eye toward independence and ownership. Diddy represented everything he resented, including alleged gatekeeping and mogul moves that left others also behind. Ensured that Diddy would always be the punchline. He made fun of Puff's dancing and flashy suits. He made insinuations about the Syracuse mogul, saying he was performative. 50 suggested that Diddy was calculated and even he kept repeating it until the public started repeating it too. This is an important point. 50 Cent did not just take isolated shots at Diddy. He ran a sustained campaign over years. He made the same points over and over again. He used social media like a weapon. And eventually, the public started echoing what 50 had been saying all along. During these years, this feud moved from lyrics to liquor. 50 Cent announced a partnership with F and vodka in 2014. Stepping directly into the spirits market, Diddy had dominated with Ciroc since 2007. However, this wasn't just a business move. It was bait 50 made sure Diddy saw it. He mocked Diddy and Ciroc mercilessly on social media. And during interviews, he questioned whether it was even vodka at all. The Vodka Wars. That chapter of their feud was public and petty and lasted for years. French Montana got involved. French Montana became a die-hard supporter of Puff's Ciroc, which caused 50 Cent to issue a snarky comment on social media. French had initially supported the G-Unit leaders F and before vodka, apparently switching sides. "This what I feel about your bulls." To F and vodka, French said in a video response to 50, proceeding to take numerous bottles of F and throw them in a dumpster. 50 turned that into content too. Everything was content for him. Every shot that Diddy or his associates fired, 50 used it as ammunition to create more buzz, engagement, more attention. Then there was the shopping incident. Jackson shared how Combs once made him feel after offering a shopping trip. He spoke about the incident to The Hollywood Reporter in 2024. He asked to take me shopping. "I thought that was the weirdest shit in the world. Because that might be something that a man says to a woman. From that, I wasn't comfortable around him." He added, that story became a recurring theme in 50's commentary about Diddy. He brought it up multiple times. 50 recalled, "He said something to me a long time ago at Chris Letty's wedding. He told me he'd take me shopping. I looked at him like, what did you just say? Let me move, man. Before I do something, you gonna make me mess up the wedding." No, that's something a guy says to a girl. And Diddy's response, addressing the story in which he asked 50 Cent to go shopping. Diddy said, "Yeah, I thought he needed some clothes. I'm a nice guy through all of this." Diddy maintained that there was no real beef. Later that year, when asked about 50's comments during an interview on The Breakfast Club, Diddy dismissed it all. "I don't have no beef with 50. He loves me, you can't see that. That's not hate, he loves me." It was a soft deflection delivered with a smirk, but also a strategy. Diddy rarely engaged 50 directly, and when he did, it was with a shrug. But 50 did not stop. The jabs didn't stop. 50 kept posting. The trolling became familiar, predictable even. Some began to wonder why 50 kept pushing the narrative. And why did he never fought back? And then came the moment that changed everything. In November 2023, when Cassie filed a lawsuit against Combs for an alleged physical assault, 50 took a jab at him. This was when the feud stopped being about music and business and started being about something much more serious. In November 2023, Cassie Ventura accused Combs of rape and sexual assault. After the two had settled a lawsuit, Combs stepped down as the chairman of Revolt, which Jackson mocked him for. And then when the federal raids happened in March 2024, 50 was ready. In March 2024, Homeland Security raided 2 of Diddy's residences in Los Angeles and Miami in connection to a federal sex trafficking investigation. Diddy was convicted of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, but acquitted of the more serious charges of racketeering sex trafficking. In the wake of Diddy's 50-month prison sentence in October 2025, 50 Cent confirmed that he would release a Netflix documentary about the scandal called Sean Combs: The Reckoning. But here is a critical detail that many people miss. 50 Cent has said he suspected Combs' alleged illegal behavior for years, and that the documentary was already in the works. Prior to Diddy's arrest in September 2024, that changes the narrative. 50 was not reacting to the arrest. He was already building toward this. He was already gathering footage, conducting interviews, and assembling the pieces of this documentary before the federal government even made its move. On December 7th, 2023, executive producer Jackson announced that he was developing a Sean Combs docu-series, and that proceeds from the project would go to victims of the sexual misconduct allegations against Combs before hiring Alexandria Stapleton to direct the series. Jackson had been working on the project for 5 months, looking for people close to Combs who were willing to speak and tell the truth. 5 months, that means 50 started working on this in mid-2023, before many of the public allegations had even come to light. He was ahead of the curve. Whether you see that as admirable journalism or a calculated vendetta depends on which side of the debate you fall on. 50 Cent opened up about exactly why he chose to produce the Netflix series, making it clear it's not just about their beef. "If I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as hip-hop is fine with his behaviors." 50 Cent told Good Morning America, "There's no one else being vocal, so you would look at it and just say, mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing or those things. That would allow an entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior. That is 50 Cent positioning himself as the voice of accountability in hip-hop. He is saying that if he stays silent, the culture stays complicit. Whether you believe that framing or not, it is effective. It takes the focus off the personal beef and puts it on the larger issue. 50 Cent and Stapleton said in an exclusive statement to Variety, "This is a story with significant human impact. It is a complex narrative spanning decades, not just the headlines or clips seen so far. We remain steadfast in our commitment to give a voice to the voiceless and to present authentic and nuanced perspectives. While the allegations are disturbing, we urge all to remember that Sean Combs' story is not the full story of hip-hop and its culture. We aim to ensure that individual actions do not overshadow the culture's broader contributions." That is a measured, careful statement. It is the language of producers who know they are walking a legal and ethical tightrope. They are acknowledging the seriousness of the allegations while also saying that this story should not define an entire culture. Diddy's team was not buying it. Shortly after its release, Diddy's team issued a firm response, calling the project a hit piece. Netflix's so-called documentary is a shameful hit piece, they said, arguing that Netflix used stolen footage meant for Diddy's own unreleased projects. Stolen footage meant for Diddy's own unreleased projects. That is a specific legal claim. They are saying that the footage was originally created for Diddy's use and that it was taken without authorization. But as Roger Bonds explained, if the videographers were never paid, they may have had every right to sell that to whoever offered the best price. And Netflix backed that up. Netflix's response was clear. The project has no ties to any past conversations between Sean Combs and Netflix. The footage of Combs leading up to his indictment and legally obtained. One of the most fascinating aspects of this entire story is the role played by former bodyguards. We have already discussed Roger Bonds in detail, but Gene Deal is the other side of this coin, and together they paint a picture of life inside Diddy's empire that is both consistent and devastating. Let us start with what they agree on. Both Bonds and Deal have said publicly that they witnessed troubling behavior from Diddy. Over the years, both have appeared on multiple interview platforms to share their experiences, and both have been criticized by some for speaking out, accused of violating the code of the streets, or trying to cash in on Diddy's downfall. Roger Bonds appeared on Vlad TV and admitted that he would testify against Combs if subpoenaed by the court. "If I get subpoenaed, I'm not going to jail for nobody," said Bonds initially. DJ Vlad clarified that his cooperation and affirmed that he wouldn't be thrown in jail if he chose to remain silent, but Bonds would testify regardless. "I can't say that I'm gonna be an advocate for one thing and then not stand up for another thing," he explained. "So if I say that he's evil and I say all these things about him, if I was just one of those people that went back and sat down, then I'm continuing for this to keep going on and on." So to me, when it comes to Diddy in this situation, this is small fries to me. Only one that can say is a person that hasn't been through anything in life. Bonds has been vocal about his thoughts on Combs since Cassie's lawsuit against the Bad Boy Records founder surfaced. In a since-deleted post per Complex, he shared photos of himself and Cassie and "I'm willing to tell my truth because for so many wires I was quiet. Nothing matters now but family." Cassie named Bonds in her lawsuit, saying that he witnessed Diddy allegedly stomping on her face in a January 2009 after he saw her speaking to another music manager in a Los Angeles nightclub. She noted that Bonds attempted to intervene and to prevent the assault, which was unsuccessful. That is a specific allegation from a legal filing. Cassie is saying that Bonds was there, that he tried to stop it, and that he could not. And Bonds has not denied it. In fact, he has spoken about it following the incident. Bonds said that Diddy sent Cassie to a hotel recover from her injuries. Bonds described checking in on Cassie during her stay and was shocked when she showed him to bruises on her chest. "She unbuttoned her shirt and showed me. She had to black and blue marks." Bonds recounted Cassie allegedly stayed in the hotel for a week before reuniting with Diddy, as if nothing had happened. According to Bonds, this was Diddy's usual approach after conflicts with Cassie. Whenever situations like that happened, Cassie would go shopping and come back with a million bags. He said Bonds claims Diddy would sometimes send Cassie on vacation to places like Fiji as a way to smooth things over. In the interview, Bonds shared that Diddy often used material gifts to make amends with Cassie. After heated moments, the pattern that Bonds describes, violence followed by lavish gifts and trips, is consistent with what Cassie herself alleged in her lawsuit. It is also consistent with the cycle that of domestic violence advocates have documented for decades. Bonds indicated although others may have witnessed similar incidents, few people were willing to confront Diddy. I was basically the only one who would do it in front of people, he said, suggesting that most of Diddy's inner circle either turned a blind eye or feared the consequences of speaking up. That fear of speaking up, that culture of silence, is what the documentary is ultimately about. It is about the people who saw things and said nothing. And now one by one they are talking. Roger later appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored, where he openly criticized Diddy, calling him a king manipulator with a god syndrome. He also addressed the apology video that Diddy released and said that it was inadequate and insincere. In one interview, Bond said, "I have seen things that will make you question things." Elsewhere in the episode, he also claimed Diddy never reciprocated the same level of loyalty that he displayed towards the mogul, despite spending holidays together and forming a tight relationship. Roger recalled a time when Diddy downright doubted his ability to make a similar income without him. Knowing Puff he's emotionless, he said in the episode Now. Gene Deal tells a similar story from a different era. Deal worked for Diddy during the earlier years. The era of Bad Boys dominance. The era of Biggie and Tupac. The era of the nightclub incidents. And the rise to the top. Gene Deal has spoken out about Combs' current legal woes. In the new documentary, The Downfall of Diddy, he claims that it's not just people in the music industry who are nervous about being seen on the videotape. Authorities allegedly confiscated from Combs' mansion. I don't think it's just celebrities that are going to be shook. Deal claimed he had politicians in there. He had princes in there. He also had a couple of preachers politicians, princes, preachers. If Deal is to be believed, the scope of what happened inside Diddy's world extends far beyond the music industry. In Making of a Bad Boy, Deal claims that Diddy was allegedly acting suspiciously in the days before the murder of Biggie. The week in which Biggie was murdered, he was just acting real anxious and trying to get big at this party, says Deal. And what was crazy was Big was telling people he had to be in London, but Puff was telling people he ain't going to London that whole week. That account from Deal has been one of the most discussed elements of the entire Diddy saga. The suggestion that Diddy was pushing Biggie to attend the party where he was murdered, while Biggie himself was trying to leave the country. Whether that constitutes evidence of involvement or just coincidence is a matter of debate. But Deal put it on the record under his own name for the world to hear. Deal stated plainly, so did he directly have something to do with it? He could have many a year. I couldn't fight back the tears knowing that young man was murdered, says former Diddy bodyguard Gene Deal about the drive-by shooting death of the notorious Biggie in 1997. Now there is also a dispute between Deal and Misa Hilton, who is the mother of Diddy's son Justin. Misa Hilton responded to the harassment she and Justin Combs following the release of the documentary Sean Combs: The Reckoning on Netflix. The fashion designer claimed that the ongoing issues have risen from comments made by Gene Deal, the former security officer of Bad Boy Records. According to the Shade Room, Gene Deal had once claimed that Diddy was not the father of Justin. He alleged that Justin was born to Anthony Wolf Jones, who was a bodyguard for Sean in the past. Hilton described the harassment towards her as heartbreaking and added, "The truth is the public is being misled about me and my child." Deal responded to Hilton's accusations. He denied ever targeting Hilton in any way. My whole thing about it is Meezer. How am I harassing you? I've never harassed you. I've always been a protector of you so far until now. He also claimed it wasn't his responsibility to verify or deny involving rumors Anthony Wolf Jones. Deal acknowledged, for instance, "You had on the internet that said that I said Wolf was Justin's father. I never said that. Did I deny it? Did I act like I didn't know? Yeah, you know why. Because anything that could hurt this. It was on from there. I know what was said hurt Justin. Because I did not clarify it to nobody. This is the collateral damage of these documentaries and public revelations. Real people, Misa Hilton, Justin Combs, are being affected by statements and implications made by former bodyguards and documentary producers. The line between seeking truth and causing harm gets blurred in these situations. But it also shows why Roger statements about the footage matter so much. Because this is not just about one documentary. It is about an entire ecosystem of revelations, accusations, and counterclaims that has been building for years and shows no signs of stopping. In 2025, Roger Bonds revealed on Instagram that he's battling prostate cancer, a serious health challenge he's facing, while simultaneously dealing with all the attention from his Diddy connections. Even with that diagnosis, Bonds has not stepped back from speaking out. In May 2020, Roger Bonds gave another interview in which he stated that he was unafraid to speak his truth. If subpoenaed, he emphasized that he had 4 daughters at home and wanted to take a stand for what was right for daughters' prostate cancer. And he is still talking. That tells you something about the weight of what he says he witnessed. And then there is the question of credibility. Another conflict related to deciding what is true and what's not. With Diddy on the proverbial gallows, it is easy for anyone to come forward and reveal things that may not actually be true. Most recently, Gene Deal said that Jay-Z hid from Tupac in a Las Vegas hotel room before a concert, hinting at have being fearful of the late rapper, even though there was no known direct issue between the two. His proximity to Diddy lends itself to having some credibility. But in this day and age, one has to be apprehensive about taking anyone's word at face value. That is a fair point. Proximity does not equal accuracy. Just because someone was in the room does not mean they are telling the truth about what happened in that room. But what makes the testimony of both Bonds and Deal compelling is that their accounts, while coming from different time periods and different perspectives, tell a consistent story about the culture inside Diddy's world. The release of Sean Combs' The Reckoning was not the end of the story. If anything, it was the beginning of a new chapter. Interest in the allegations against Sean Diddy Combs surged with the release of the new Netflix documentary. Produced by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, the series includes interviews with jurors from Diddy's federal trial, part of a sweeping case that began in September 2024, when Combs was arrested and charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Sean Combs' The Reckoning arrives as the 56-year-old serves a 50-month federal sentence 50 months, New Jersey. That is the sentence Diddy is currently serving. And while he sits in prison, the documentaries keep coming. The former associates keep talking, and the public appetite for information about shows his no signs of diminishing. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 90% of 10 critics' reviews are positive. The website's consensus reads, "Meticulous and sober rather than sensational." Sean Combs' The Reckoning is a smoothly made and exhaustive chronicle whose mounting well-evidenced allegations leave a deep impact. That is a strong critical reception, and it matters because it pushes back against the narrative that the documentary is just a hit piece. Critics, professional reviewers who watch documentaries for a living, gave it overwhelmingly positive reviews. The Guardian's Stuart Heritage rated the series 4 stars out of 5, and wrote that the existence of The Reckoning seems to suggest that the arch manipulator has finally been outmaneuvered. Outmaneuvered. That word captures what many people feel about this documentary. Diddy spent decades controlling his image, his narrative, his public persona, and now through a combination of legal proceedings, former associates speaking out, and a documentary produced by his longtime rival, that control has been stripped away. Now, what about the future? 50 Cent is not slowing down. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson kicked off the new year with his latest project, this time collaborating with Any for a true crime series, Gang Wars. The rapper-producer confirmed the news on Tuesday evening, simply writing in an Instagram post, "Gang Wars coming soon, and I got some heat." Deadline describes the series as an unfiltered look into America's most infamous gang rivalries, with unprecedented access and never-before-heard accounts. The announcement arrives on the heels of Sean Combs' The Reckoning, a 4-part documentary released in December about the imprisoned music mogul that was executive produced by Jackson. So 50 Cent has gone from being a rapper to being a media mogul in his own right. He produced Power, one of the most successful cable dramas of the past decade. He produced the Diddy documentary, which became one of Netflix's biggest releases of 2025. And now he is moving into true crime content on A&E in 2024. Jackson announced a partnership with Lionsgate to launch the Fast channel, 50 Cent Action, which was recently named the One Action channel on Roku and LG Channel's Fast platforms. The free ad-supported channel features premium content from the studio's library, including the original Power series, along with hit films such as John Wick, The Expendables, The Hitman's Bodyguard, and Rambo. That is a media empire, and the Diddy documentary is just one piece of it. But it is arguably the most consequential because it thrust 50 Cent into the role of documentarian, a role that he has embraced with the same energy that he once brought to diss tracks and social media trolling. And then there is the question of a pardon. According to reports, Combs and his allies had been looking into the possibility of securing from President Donald Trump. Even before the verdict in Combs' case came in, his team was maneuvering to woo Trump, prompting 50 Cent to pledge that he would do everything he could to prevent a pardon. That is the next chapter. The question of whether Diddy's sentence will be shortened or overturned through political channels And 50 Cent has already made it clear he will be on the other side of that fight too. In May, 50 Cent sold those rights to Netflix. Even while Puff may be innocent until proven guilty, 50 Cent is so determined to see the mogul locked up that he compiled a list of times Diddy said something negative about President Trump, hoping to dissuade the president from pardoning the business titan. That is strategic, that is calculated. That is 50 Cent playing the long game. He is not just producing content about Diddy, he is actively working to ensure that the legal consequences whether you agree with his methods or not. You cannot deny the effectiveness of his approach. But there is also something else happening that goes beyond the 50 Cent and Diddy rivalry. It is about the broader culture of accountability. Director Alexandria Stapleton Cassie Ventura's 2023 lawsuit was a cultural turning point that compelled her to examine whether society is finally capable of processing against powerful figures fairly. When Cassie dropped her lawsuit, I knew this was a stress test of whether we've changed as a culture. Stapleton said that is the bigger question. Have we changed? Are we capable of holding powerful people accountable regardless of how much money they have, how many hits they've produced, or how many white parties they've thrown? The answer based on the reception of this documentary seems to be yes, at least partially. The public is watching, the public is engaging. The public is forming opinions based on the evidence presented, but the public is also asking tough questions about the documentary itself, about what was left out, about what was taken out of context, and about the motivations of the people who produced it. Stapleton herself acknowledged the complexity of being a woman in the industry and going through the Me Too movement, watching giants in music and film go on trial, and to know what their outcomes were. When Cassie dropped her lawsuit, I just thought this could go a million different directions. As a woman, I wondered how she had the confidence to go out there against a mogul like Sean Combs. She added, "This isn't just about the story of Sean Combs or the story of Cassie, of any of the victims, or the allegations against him or the trial. Ultimately, this story is a mirror reflecting us as the public and what we are saying. When we put our celebrities on such a high pedestal, I hope this documentary is a wake-up call for how we idolize and to people. Understand that everybody is a human being. A mirror reflecting us," that line from Stapleton. Maybe the most important takeaway from this entire story. Because the documentary is not just about Diddy. It is about us, the consumers, the fans, the culture, that elevated him and looked the other way when the signs were there. Cassie Ventura, Combs' former partner, was invited to participate in the series but declined. Jackson said that he spoke to Ventura and her husband Alex to understand how things transpired with Combs. Cassie's decision not to participate is significant. She started this entire chain of events with her lawsuit. She was the first to publicly accuse Diddy and put it in legal filings. And yet she chose not to be part of the documentary. That speaks to the personal cost of coming forward, the toll that public exposure takes on survivors, and the difference between seeking justice through the courts and seeking justice through media. Now let's bring it all back to his statements about the footage. What Bond said was simple. Diddy hired young videographers. He wanted everything filmed all the time. He often did not pay them. And when he did not pay them, they were free to sell that footage to whoever wanted it. That explanation does several things. It explains how 50 Cent's production could have legally obtained that footage Diddy's team claims was stolen. It highlights a pattern of behavior, not paying people for their work, that is consistent with other allegations against Diddy. And it positions the footage controversy not as a legal issue, but as a consequence of how Diddy ran his empire. The story of these former bodyguards, both Bonds and Deal, is really the story of an empire collapsing from the inside out. These are men who were paid to protect Diddy, to keep his secrets to be the wall between him and the outside world. And now they are the ones tearing that wall down. Whether their motivations are pure, whether they are driven by a genuine desire for justice, or by the opportunity to capitalize on a trending story, is a question that each person has to answer for themselves. But the information they are providing is consistent with what has come out through legal proceedings. And that consistency is what gives their accounts weight. Roger Bond sat down with DJ to discuss the Diddy sex trafficking trial and revealed a past situation with the mogul allegedly stalking his late ex-girlfriend, Kim Porter, while reviewing the Diddy, Cassie, and Kid Cudi romance. Once would remember he and allegedly Diddy spending up to 6 hours outside of Kim Porter's home. Times the mogul would allegedly sit outside Porter's house when he was unable to get in, but pay for the home 6 hours outside someone's house. That is not love, that is control. And that story from a man who was sitting in the car during those 6 hours adds another layer to the picture. This man was behind the music, behind the parties, behind the public image. Now, let us address the elephant in the room. Some people have asked whether 50 Cent's involvement in this documentary undermines its credibility. After all, he has been trolling Diddy for 20 years. He has called him names. He has mocked him on social media. He has publicly celebrated his downfall. Can a man with that kind of animosity produce a fair documentary? The critics seem to think so. The 90% rating on Rotten Tomatoes suggests that the documentary is well-made and substantive. But Diddy's team would argue that the very fact that 50 Cent is attached makes it inherently biased. The truth is probably somewhere in between. 50 Cent's involvement brought resources, attention, and access to this project that might not have been available otherwise. His name drew viewers, his platform amplified the documentary's reach, but his personal vendetta against Diddy is also impossible to separate from the project. No matter how many press releases Netflix puts out about creative independence, and that is what makes this story so compelling. It is not just about one documentary. It is about the intersection of personal rivalry, public accountability, media power, and the complicated question of who gets to tell whose story. Roger Bonds, through his statements about the footage, added one more piece to this puzzle. He showed that the very behavior Diddy is accused of exploiting, people refusing to pay, using his power to take advantage of those with less, may have been the thing that armed his enemies with the tools to bring him down. Diddy did not pay the videographers. The videographer sold the footage. 50 Cent used the footage, and now Diddy is sitting in a federal prison while the whole world watches. There is a kind of poetic justice in that. Or maybe it is just business. As Roger Bonds put it, this is business. And in the business of hip-hop, in the business of media, and in the business of power. That statement tells you everything you need to know. The story is far from over. On March 5, 2026, 50 Cent briefly shared an Instagram post that sent immediate shockwaves across the internet. For a fleeting moment before it was deleted, the post revealed a sneak peek of a purported documentary titled Surviving T and Tiny in the caption. 50 Cent warned the Atlanta rap that he was about to be questioned regarding 20 sexual assault cases. 50 Cent understands that in the modern era of instant viral media, the sheer threat of an exposing documentary often hits significantly harder than the actual project itself. By weaponizing a deleted Instagram post, 50 Cent managed to force T onto the defensive, drag his past traumas back into the mainstream headlines, and control the entire hip-hop narrative without having to spend a single dollar on production. That is the playbook. Now 50 Cent has established a model. Produce a documentary, amplify it through social media, and use the entire process as leverage in personal and cultural conflicts. And with the success of Sean Combs' The Reckoning, that model has been validated on the biggest stage possible. The former bodyguards have spoken. The footage has been seen. The documentary has been watched by millions. And the questions about what happened inside Diddy's world are not going away. Because when the people who were paid to protect you become the ones telling your secrets, there is nowhere left to hide. Not behind lawyers, not behind us. Not behind the power and influence that once made you untouchable. The walls have come down, and the footage that Roger Bonds says was sold by unpaid videographers, the footage that Netflix says was legally obtained, the footage that Diddy's team calls stolen, is now available for the world to see. That is the reality that Sean Diddy Combs wakes up to in his federal prison cell. And that is the reality that 50 Cent leveraged into one of the biggest documentary events of the year. The Bodyguard spoke, the footage leaked. The documentary dropped, and the consequences are still unfolding. If you found this breakdown informative, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below and let me know. Do you think the footage was legally obtained? Or do you side with Diddy's team? And do you think 50 Cent's involvement makes this documentary more or less credible? I want to hear your thoughts. Until next time.